In part 1 of Sarg-57 of the Yoga Vasistha, today we will discuss in detail topics such as Sri Rama's supreme contentment and the Noka Vriksha Vivarta boat tree illusion analogy. We're diving into one of the absolute most profound texts in all of Vedic literature. And our goal for this explainer? Well, it's to break down these monumental, ancient concepts into really clear, highly structured insights. We're going to step right into the exact dialogue between Maharishi Vasistha and Sri Rama. I want you to imagine being right there, listening in, as they explore how our perception of reality literally dictates our internal peace. It's a real game changer. Now, here is the foundational inquiry. To truly get the gravity of this text, I want you to place yourself right there at the scene. Sri Rama, he's just completely overwhelmed by how fleeting the world is, right? And he asks this deeply profound question. O venerable sage, how does one attain supreme contentment amidst the relentless illusions of this world? How does the mind actually find absolute rest when literally everything around it is constantly moving? You see, the task here isn't just to hand him some temporary psychological trick. No, Maharishi Vasistha has to fundamentally deconstruct how Rama perceives reality itself. And that brings us straight to the core teachings of Canto 57.
All right, let's get into Section 1. Verse 1, Sri Rama's Supreme Contentment.
So let's look at our first core text. In our dialogue mapping, you'll find this referenced right around page 15.1 of the source text. Here, Maharishi Vasistha is essentially establishing the baseline of Sri Rama's spiritual evolution. He's showing us what true supreme contentment actually looks like, right before he explains the mechanics of the illusion that constantly distracts us from it. The original Sanskrit verse recites, Praptam Paramam Vishramam. Translated literally, it means having attained absolute rest. If we break it down word by word, Paramam means supreme or absolute, and Vishramam translates to rest, repose, or contentment. Maharishi Vasistha is essentially telling Rama, look, this supreme rest isn't about just sitting perfectly still and doing nothing physically, not at all. It's the absolute cessation of the mind's restless cravings. It's that moment when you're no longer chasing the mirage because, well, you've finally found the actual oasis.
As Maharishi Vasistha himself explains, the philosophical and spiritual significance of this verse 1 contentment is just absolutely massive. We're talking about a state of absolute peace achieved by anchoring yourself completely in your true self, entirely free from worldly cravings. Notice how this totally contrasts with our modern, kind of superficial ideas of happiness? Today, we usually think of happiness as, piling up joyful experiences, getting that promotion, buying a new car, eating a really great meal. But Vasistha hasn't altered the meaning of verse 1 to fit our modern consumerism. No way. He teaches Rama that true contentment is structural. It's that immovable, rock-solid peace that just stays there when all those temporary, fleeting desires of the mind are completely neutralized.
Moving right along, Section 2, Verse 8, the analogy of the boat and the tree. Okay, so once Sri Rama's state of supreme contentment is established as the ultimate goal, he inevitably asks the million-dollar question. Why is it so incredibly hard for ordinary people to stay in this state? Why does the world feel so overwhelmingly real and just turbulent? To answer this, Maharishi Vasistha transitions to verse 8 of Canto 57. This is on page 15.8 of our references, and he introduces what I think is one of the most brilliant cognitive metaphors in all of ancient philosophy. The key verse goes, Nakayam gachatam pumsam vriksha gatihiyatha vivartate. Basically, just as trees appear to move to a man traveling in a boat, so does the mind project movement. Let's look at the literal translation here. Naka means boat, vriksha means tree, and vivarta, this is a highly specific philosophical term. It means illusion, superimposition, or misperception. It's like this. Just as a person sitting in a moving boat perceives the stationary trees on the riverbank to be moving backwards, our restless mind perceives the stationary, unchanging self to be in motion.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact mechanics of human suffering. Imagine you're in a moving boat. The trees on the shore? Perfectly still. But because you are moving, your eyes are telling you those trees are just flying past you. Now apply this to your own consciousness. That moving boat, that's your mind, driven by what we call avidya, or ignorance. The stationary trees represent the sakshi, the witness consciousness. Because your mind is constantly bouncing around, agitated by thoughts and desires, you falsely project all that chaotic movement onto your true self and the entire world around you. You feel totally unstable, but the crazy part is, the instability is entirely in the vehicle, not in the ground of reality itself.
Which brings us to Section 3, Core Terminology, Brahman, Avidya, and Sakshi.
To really grasp Maharishi Vashishtha's detailed explanation in Sarg-57, we've got to do a sequential breakdown of the three foundational concepts that hold up this entire canto. Sri Rama absolutely needed to understand these to achieve his supreme contentment, and honestly, so do we. So let's define them strictly according to the original text. First up, Brahman. As Vashishtha imparts to Rama, Brahman is the ultimate unchanging reality. It is the foundational truth of literally all existence. Going back to our analogy for a second, Brahman is the space itself, the motionless ground of reality that the river, the boat, and the trees all exist within. It's completely unconditioned, it's perfectly still, it never ever moves, it never changes, and it's completely free from the emotional roller coaster of joy and sorrow.
Second is Avijja. Now this is our moving boat. Avijja is the fundamental ignorance, that core cognitive distortion that creates the illusion of movement, separation, and limitation in the first place. It's the distorted lens of a restless mind. Maharishi Vashishtha is very clear here. Avijja isn't just a lack of information, like not knowing math. No, it's an active misinterpretation of reality. It's exactly what makes you stare at perfectly stationary trees and swear that they are running backwards. It is the absolute root cause of why we lose our supreme contentment.
And our third term is Sakshi, the witness. This is the pure, observing consciousness that remains totally stationary and unaffected by the chaos. Think of the Sakshi as your true self, standing perfectly still like those trees on the riverbank. The Sakshi doesn't judge, it doesn't crave anything, and it certainly doesn't move. It just observes the boat floating by. Maharishi Vashishtha's ultimate instruction to Sri Rama in verse 8 is basically this. Shift your identification away from that moving boat of avidya and anchor it firmly on the stationary shore of the Sakshi. Let's explore how this connects to us today in Section 4, the modern ancient bridge, quantum science, and cognitive psychology. So, you might be wondering, how does a text that's thousands of years old actually apply to us right now? How do we take Sarg-57 and bridge it into the modern world? Well, what's absolutely fascinating is that Maharishi Vashishtha's ancient Sanskrit teachings run completely parallel to modern scientific paradigms. Let's look at how the Yoga Vasistha perfectly maps onto modern physics, starting with quantum non-duality and this beautiful sparks metaphor found in the teachings. Modern quantum physics actually tells us that at the subatomic level, the universe isn't made up of isolated, separate objects. It's actually a single, continuous, unified field. This is exactly what Vashishtha describes as Brahman. He uses this metaphor of sparks flying from a fire. Individual forms, you, me, the trees, the boat, we're all like tiny sparks flying off one eternal fire. Sure, we look separate for a brief fleeting moment, but we share the exact same essence as the fire. That feeling of absolute separation, that's a perceptual illusion. That's avidya. When you truly realize you are the fire and not just a fleeting spark, supreme contentment just naturally follows. Next, let's look at cognitive psychology. We can see this clearly through the profound Ayurpinda metaphor taught by Vashishtha. Now, Ayurpinda literally translates to an iron ball. Imagine you take a cold, dark iron ball and place it straight into a blazing fire. What happens? It absorbs the heat and starts glowing red hot. It actually starts to look and act like fire, even though it's still just iron. Vashishtha explains that the mind is that iron ball, and the Sakshi, pure consciousness, is the fire. The mind doesn't have any actual consciousness of its own, but it absorbs the heat of consciousness and then pretends to be the self. Modern cognitive restructuring is all about this exact realization, realizing that your mind's anxious, racing thoughts are not actually you. By rewiring your perception, you literally learn to separate the heat from the iron. You learn to separate the chaotic movement of your mind from the perfect stillness of your true witnessing self. And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, Application in Daily Life. This brings us to arguably the most practical part of our explainer. You see, Maharishi Vashishtha didn't just want Sri Rama to understand this stuff intellectually, he wanted him to live it. He wanted him to embody that verse 1 supreme contentment. So how do we actually apply the boat tree illusion and the iron ball metaphor to our everyday lives? Well, here is the sequential, logical breakdown. Step 1. Observe the restless mind without judgment. Next time you feel anxious or upset, just realize, oh, I'm sitting in the moving boat. Don't fight the movement, just notice it. Step 2. Anchor your identity in the Sakshi, the witness. Remind yourself that you are the stationary tree on the bank. All that agitation, that belongs to the mind, the Ayapinda, not to you. And step 3. Recognize the moving world as avidya. When people act out, or when your circumstances become totally chaotic, see it as the Vivarta, the illusion of movement superimposed on the deep stillness of Brahman. By following these 3 steps, you actively detach from the drama and rest in absolute, unshakable peace. As we wrap up this deep dive into Canto 57 of the Yoga Vasistha, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Tomorrow, and every single day after, your mind is going to try and convince you that the trees are running backward. It's going to try to pull you right back into the anxiety of that moving boat. But the difference is, now you have the map. So ask yourself today, will you continue to identify with the moving boat of avidya, or will you choose to rest in the stationary, supreme truth of the tree? The choice, my friends, is entirely yours.
On behalf of the Vedmata AI family, we humbly request that if you found our presentation enlightening, please share our video widely so that authentic knowledge from Indian Vedic texts can reach the masses. Let us all come together to participate in this Gyan Yagya, offering of knowledge. Har Har Mahadev.